The stars looked cold through the viewport of the shuttle. Ambassador Taeyong watched them in silence as his ship approached the massive structure floating in space. The Eternal Concordat was bigger than any human city, a marvel of technology that humanity could not yet build. Its surface gleamed like polished silver, and lights blinked across its hull like artificial stars. Taeyong had been to the Galactic Council headquarters 3 times before. Each visit had been pleasant enough. The alien diplomats were curious about humanity, asking questions about Earth's cultures and history. They seemed welcoming, if a bit patronizing. This time felt different. The message had arrived on Earth 2 days ago. It was brief and cold. The Council required Earth's ambassador to appear before them immediately. No explanation? No pleasantries. Just a summons. Captain Haijin sat across from him in the shuttle, her military uniform crisp and perfect. Her face showed nothing, but Taeyong knew her well enough to see the tension in her shoulders. She had commanded warships in 3 different conflicts before becoming his security chief. She had good instincts for danger. "Sir, something is wrong," she said quietly. "I've checked with my contacts. No other species has been summoned like this in 50 years. Taeyong nodded slowly. He had suspected as much. His aide, Legate Bioram, sat nearby with her tablet, reviewing diplomatic protocols and past council sessions. She was young, barely 30, but she had a mind like a computer. She noticed patterns others missed. "Ambassador," Bioram said, not looking up from her screen, "I've analyzed the language of the summons. It uses formal terms that are typically reserved for disciplinary proceedings." "A trial?" Haijin said flatly. "Possibly," Taeyong replied. He kept his voice calm and steady, the way he always did. Years of military service had taught him that panic was contagious. Leaders could not afford to show fear. The shuttle docked with a soft clang. Taeyong stood and straightened his formal robes. They were traditional Korean diplomatic garments, modified slightly for council protocols. He wanted the aliens to see humanity's culture, to remember that Earth had traditions older than some of their younger civilizations. The airlock opened, and they stepped into a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were made of something that looked like crystal but felt warm to the touch. Lights moved beneath the surface in patterns that hurt to watch for too long. A small floating sphere approached them. It was a guide drone used to escort visitors through the massive station. It spoke in a melodic voice. "That was pleasant but artificial. Ambassador Taeyong of Earth, you are expected in council chamber. 1. Please follow." They walked through corridors that grew progressively larger and more impressive. Taeyong had studied the architecture of the Concordat. It was designed to make visitors feel small and overwhelmed. Every species that came here was meant to understand how vast and powerful the Galactic Council truly was. They passed other aliens in the corridors. Tall crystalline beings that looked like living sculptures. Reptilian creatures with scales that shifted colors. Insectoids with too many legs and eyes. Beings made of light or gas or stranger things. None of them acknowledged the human delegation. Some turned away deliberately. "They're avoiding us," Baram whispered. "They know something we don't," Haijin added, her hand moving unconsciously toward where her sidearm would normally be. Weapons were forbidden in the council chambers, but old habits died hard. The guide drone led them to a massive door that must have been 50 meters tall. It was carved with symbols from 1,000 different civilizations. Humanity's mark was there too, added just 15 years ago when Earth joined the galactic community. It was small and near the bottom, easy to miss. The doors opened silently, and Taeyong's breath caught despite his training. The council chamber was enormous. It rose up like the inside of a mountain, with levels upon levels of seats arranged in a spiral. Each seat held a representative from a different species. Taeyong had known there were over 800 civilizations in the council, but seeing them all gathered in one place was overwhelming. The chamber should have been filled with the murmur of conversation, the sound of hundreds of species communicating through translators. Instead, it was silent. Every alien in the room was watching the humans enter, Tae-young walked forward with measured steps. His training kept his face neutral, but his mind was racing. This was not a normal session. The atmosphere was wrong. There were no diplomatic pleasantries, no formal welcomes. Just silence and staring. At the center of the chamber was a raised platform with a single podium. Above it floated the High Arbiter, a being called Velmara. She was from the Luminal Collective, one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. Her body was made of crystal that constantly shifted and refracted light. She had no face that humans could recognize, but somehow Tae-young could sense her regarding him with something like contempt. Ambassador Tae-young of the human species? Velmara's voice echoed through the chamber without needing technology. It was like hearing thoughts directly in his mind. You have been summoned to answer for the actions of your kind. Tae-young felt Hyjin tense beside him. Thoram's fingers tightened on her tablet. He raised one hand slightly, a signal they knew meant to stay calm. High Arbiter, Tae-young replied, his voice steady and clear. Earth has always respected the Council's authority. We are prepared to answer any questions you have. This is not a dialogue, human. This is a judgment. The words fell like stones into still water. Around the chamber, Tae-young could see some aliens shifting in their seats. A few looked uncomfortable. Most looked satisfied. Near the upper levels, a reptilian being leaned forward. Tae-young recognized him as Counselor Thrax of the Scaleburn Empire. His species had never liked humans. Thrax's smile showed too many teeth. Let us begin, Velmara announced. Tae-young stood straight, his hands clasped behind his back, and waited. Whatever was coming, he would face it the way humanity had always faced the unknown. Without fear, without surrender, the trial had begun. The High Arbiter Velmara's crystalline form pulsed with light, and images appeared in the air above the chamber. They showed human ships, human colonies, human soldiers. Each image was carefully chosen to make humanity look aggressive and dangerous. 15 years, Velmara began, her voice filling every corner of the vast chamber. 15 years since humanity was welcomed into the Galactic Council. 15 years since we extended our hand in friendship to a primitive species that had barely escaped its own solar system. Tae-young said nothing. He had learned long ago that silence was sometimes the best response. Let them speak. Let them reveal what they truly wanted. In those 15 years, humanity has proven to be unlike any species we have encountered. Not in a positive way. Velmara gestured, and the images changed. You have built a military fleet of over 3,000 warships. Species that have been part of this council for 1,000 years have smaller fleets. How do you explain this? Before Tae-young could answer, Counselor Thrax rose from his seat. The reptilian diplomat's scales glittered as he moved, and his voice carried the harsh accent of his people. They cannot explain it, High Arbiter. Humans are a plague species. They are violent by nature, obsessed with war and conquest. Look at their history. They fought each other constantly, destroyed their own environment, created weapons that could annihilate their entire world. These are not the characteristics of a civilized people. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Tae-young noticed that not all species were nodding along. Some looked uncomfortable. A few even looked sympathetic. But they were the minority. Captain Hyjin shifted beside him. Tae-young could feel her anger like heat radiating off her body. He touched her elbow lightly, a reminder to stay calm. This was going to get worse before it got better. The military buildup is only one concern, Velmara continued. You have also been spreading dangerous ideas throughout the galaxy. Your concepts of individual rights and democratic governance are causing unrest among species that have maintained stable social orders for millions of years. An insectoid delegate clicked forward, its translator making its rapid chittering into words. My world has experienced 7 worker uprisings in the past 3 years, all of them citing human philosophy about equality and freedom. Our society is based on a caste system that has functioned perfectly for 4 million years. Now it is threatened because humans cannot keep their ideas to themselves. We share our culture, Tae-young said calmly, just as every species here shares theirs. That is what membership in this council means. There is a difference between sharing and corrupting, Thrax hissed. Your ideas are poison to stable civilizations. The images changed again, now showing maps of human expansion. Red dots marked human colonies spreading across the galaxy like a disease, or so the presentation seemed to suggest. In 15 years, humanity has colonized 47 star systems, Valmara stated. Most species take 500 years to colonize that many worlds. Your expansion is reckless and aggressive. You claim empty systems without proper surveys. You establish colonies in regions you have no historical claim to. This is the behavior of an invasive species. But Oram leaned close to Tae Young and whispered urgently, Sir, none of those systems were claimed by anyone else. We followed all protocols. Tae Young nodded slightly. He knew that. But facts did not matter as much as perception in this chamber. Then Valmara brought up the image Tae Young had been dreading. The Proxima incident, 3 years ago. The insectoid species called the Vreka had attacked a human colony on Proxima Centauri 7. It had been a mining colony, mostly civilians with minimal defenses. The Vreka had slaughtered 47,000 people before. Earth's fleet could respond. What came next was something humanity was not proud of, but would not apologize for. The Proxima incident, Valmara announced, and the chamber grew even quieter. Humanity's response to a border skirmish revealed your true nature. When the Vreka attacked one of your colonies, you did not simply defend. You invaded 3 of their worlds. You conquered their territory. You showed the galaxy that humans respond to any threat with overwhelming violence. The images showed human marines landing on Vreka worlds, cities under occupation, Vreka civilians fleeing in fear. 47,000 dead, Tae Young said quietly. His voice was soft, but it carried through the silent chamber. 47,000 civilians. Men, women, children. They were miners and farmers and teachers. They were slaughtered while calling for help that came too late, and your response was genocide, Thrax accused. No, the word came out harder than Tae Young intended. Our response was justice. We offered the Vreka surrender terms after we defeated their fleet. They refused. We offered again after the second battle. They refused. Only after they refused 3 separate offers of peace did we occupy their worlds. And even then, we did not harm their civilians. We established order, held those responsible for the massacre accountable, and left. Those Vreka worlds are now self-governing again. That is not genocide. That is restraint. Restraint? Valmara's voice dripped with disbelief. You call invading sovereign worlds restraint? I call protecting our people by any means necessary restraint when we had the power to do much worse and chose not to. Tae Young replied. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouting in 100 different languages, their translators creating a cacophony of anger and outrage. Some were furious at Tae Young's defiance. Others seemed shocked that he would speak so bluntly to the High Arbiter. Valmara raised one crystalline appendage, and silence fell again. This council has debated the human question for 6 months, she announced. We have reviewed all evidence. We have consulted with experts in sociology, military strategy, and xenopsychology. The conclusion is unanimous among the senior members of this council. Tae Young felt his stomach tighten. Here it comes. Humanity is classified as a dangerous, expansionist species with insufficient cultural development for unrestricted galactic citizenship. Therefore, this council has voted to impose containment protocols. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The terms are as follows, Valmara continued. 1. Humanity is forbidden from colonizing any new star systems. 2. All human vessels capable of faster-than-light travel must be limited to your current territorial boundaries. 3. Human military forces will be reduced by 70% over the next 5 years. 4. A peacekeeping force from the Council will be stationed in your Sol system to ensure compliance. You're putting us in a cage, Hyjin said, her voice tight with anger. We are ensuring galactic peace, Valmara replied coldly. You have 48 hours to accept these terms and begin implementation. If you refuse, the Council will take corrective action. Corrective action, Tae-young repeated. You mean war. We mean whatever is necessary to protect the galactic community from a dangerous species. Thrax was smiling widely now, his sharp teeth gleaming. Around the chamber, Tae-young could see the faces of 800 different species. Some looked triumphant. Some looked uncomfortable. A few looked genuinely sad, but the vote had been taken. The decision was made. Velmara's voice echoed one final time. Humanity has 48 hours. This session is adjourned. The massive doors opened behind Tae-young. The clear message was simple. Leave now. Tae-young turned and walked out, his back straight and his face showing nothing. Hyjin and Baoram followed. Behind them, the chamber filled with the sound of alien voices, celebrating humanity's humiliation. They did not speak until they were back in their shuttle. The doors sealed and the ship detaching from the CONCORDAT. Then Hyjin slammed her fist into the wall, denting the metal. We should reject this, she said through clenched teeth. We should fight. Baoram looked pale but determined. We can't fight the entire galaxy. Maybe not, Tae-young said quietly, staring out at the stars. But we don't have to accept chains either. He pulled out his communications device and opened a secure channel to Earth. Get me the president, he said, and tell Fleet Admiral J1 to prepare the reserves. All of them. The diplomatic suite on the Concordat was luxurious by any standard. The walls changed colors based on the occupant's mood, or at least tried to. Right now they were flickering between angry red and cold blue. Unable to decide which emotion dominated the room, Tae-young sat alone in the center, surrounded by holographic screens showing data, news feeds, and military reports. His team had scattered to their own rooms to rest, but he knew none of them would sleep. How could they? In 46 hours, humanity would either bow to the Council's demands or face war with 800 civilizations. He pulled up his personal files and opened a folder marked Before. Inside were videos and photos from 20 years ago, back when he was not an ambassador but a young military officer fighting in the unification wars. Earth had almost destroyed itself during those dark years. Nation fought against nation. Corporations battled governments. Ideologies clashed in conflicts that left millions dead. Tae-young had been in the middle of it all, commanding a small unit in the Asian theater. He played one video. It showed him much younger, his face covered in dust and blood. His squad was surrounded in the ruins of what had once been a beautiful city. Enemy forces outnumbered them 10-1. His radio crackled with his superior officer's voice ordering a retreat. Young Tae-young had looked at his squad, at the fear in their eyes, and made a decision. We don't retreat, he had said calmly. We adapt. We find a way through. They had survived that day by doing the impossible. They had turned the enemy's advantage against them, using the rubble as cover and striking from unexpected angles. Humanity's gift was not strength or speed or natural weapons. It was the ability to adapt, to find solutions when there seemed to be none. Tae-young closed the video. That same principle applied now. The Council thought they had humanity trapped. They thought overwhelming numbers meant certain victory. They were making the same mistake every enemy of humanity had made throughout history. A soft chime indicated someone at the door. Tae-young checked the security screen and saw Hyjin standing there, still in her uniform despite the late hour. Come in, he said. She entered, carrying 2 cups of tea. Real tea from Earth, not the synthetic alternatives the Council provided. She handed him one and sat down across from him. Can't sleep? He asked. Can you? She replied. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping tea and thinking their own thoughts. I pulled the historical records like you asked, Hyjin finally said. Every species in the Council went through some kind of probationary period when they joined. But ours is different, harsher, more restrictive. They're afraid of us, Tae-young said simply. Good, they should be. Tae-young smiled slightly. Hyjin had always been a fighter. She saw threats in simple terms, things that needed to be destroyed or deterred. Fear makes people dangerous, Tae-young said. They'll do irrational things. We need to be smarter than that. The door chimed again. This time it was Bilram, looking exhausted but alert. She carried her ever-present tablet, now filled with even more data than before. Ambassador, I've been analyzing the voting records, she said without preamble. The vote was 720 in favor of containment, 127 against. But if you look at who voted which way, there's a pattern. She projected her data into the air between them. Tae-young studied it carefully. The founding civilizations all voted for containment, Bilram explained. The Luminal Collective, the Scaleburn Empire, the Elder Clouds, all of them. They're the oldest species in the Council, and they control most of the powerful committees. And who voted against? Tae-young asked. Younger species? Civilizations that joined the Council in the last 1,000 years. Many of them face similar restrictions to what they're trying to impose on us. They're not happy about it, but they lack the political power to change anything. Tae-young leaned back, his mind working through the implications. The Council was not as unified as it appeared. There were fault lines, divisions that could potentially be exploited. What else did you find? He asked. Bilram hesitated. Sir, I also looked into Earth's progress compared to other species. Our expansion rate, our technological development, our fleet size. The Council's accusations aren't entirely wrong. We have advanced faster than any other known civilization in galactic history. Because we had to, Hyjin said firmly. Earth was dying. We needed colonies. We needed resources. We didn't have the luxury of taking 500 years to expand. I know, Bilram said. I'm just saying, from their perspective, we look like a threat. An unknown variable that's changing too quickly for them to predict or control. Tae-young stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars shone with cold indifference. Each one might host life, civilizations, dreams, and fears. The galaxy was vast and strange, and humanity was just beginning to understand its place in it. His communication device buzzed. The call he had been waiting for. President Kyung-soo, Tae-young said as the holographic image of Earth's leader appeared. The president looked tired. It was late in Seoul, but the entire government had been in emergency session since the Council's ultimatum was announced. Ambassador, Kyung-soo said, give me your assessment. They want us to kneel, Tae-young replied bluntly. This isn't about security or peace. It's about maintaining their power structure. They see humanity as a threat to the old order. Can we negotiate better terms? No, sir. This was decided before I ever entered that chamber. They didn't summon me for negotiation. They summoned me to deliver a verdict. Kyung-soo was quiet for a moment. Then what do you recommend? We reject their terms, completely. Another holographic figure appeared beside the president. Admiral J1, commander of Earth's combined fleet. He was a grizzled veteran who had fought in the unification wars alongside Tae-young. If we reject, they'll attack, J1 said. 800 civilizations against one. The math isn't good, old friend. The math never is, Tae-young replied. But we have advantages they don't know about. He shared a glance with Hyjin, who nodded slightly. Admiral, do you have the reserves in position? Tae-young asked. J1 smiled grimly. Every ship we built in secret over the past 3 years. 200 vessels they don't know exist, all equipped with the new jump drives. We've also colonized 15 systems beyond Council space, completely off their maps. President Kyung-soo looked surprised. You've been planning for this. Not this exactly, Tae-young admitted. But we learn from history. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Humanity has never been able to rely on others for our security. So what's the plan? Kyung-soo asked. Tae-young outlined his strategy. It was risky, perhaps even reckless. But it was also the only path forward that did not end with humanity in chains. When he finished, the president was quiet for a long moment. You're gambling with the survival of our entire species, Kyung-soo finally said. Yes, sir. But the alternative is accepting slow death. They'll contain us, restrict us, limit us until we're no longer a threat. until we're no longer ourselves. I'd rather gamble on our strength than accept that future. Kyung-soo looked to Admiral Jae-won, who nodded. The fleet will be ready, Jae-won said. Then do it, Kyung-soo decided. But Ambassador, make sure you give them every chance to back down peacefully. We don't want this war if we can avoid it. Understood, Mr. President. The call ended. Tae-young stood in silence for a moment, feeling the weight of what was coming. Sir, Buram said quietly, what you're planning to say to the council tomorrow. Are you sure it will work? No, Tae-young admitted. But I know what happens if we say nothing. Sometimes you have to risk everything on one moment, one choice, one act of defiance. He turned to face his team. Get some rest. Tomorrow we remind the galaxy why you should never underestimate humanity. Haijin and Beoram left, and Tae-young returned to the window. He thought about all the humans across hundreds of worlds, going about their lives, unaware that their future hung in the balance. They deserve better than to be caged. They deserved the stars, and tomorrow Tae-young would make sure the galaxy understood that. The council chamber was full again, every seat occupied, every species represented. The air hummed with anticipation as delegates waited to hear humanity's response to the ultimatum most expected surrender. Some hoped for defiance, though they would never admit it publicly. A few simply wanted this matter resolved so they could return to more important business. Tae-young walked to the central podium alone. He had left Haijin and Beoram in the diplomatic suite. What he was about to do required no backup, no support staff. Just one human standing before 800 civilizations. High Arbiter Velmara floated above, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's lights into rainbow patterns on the walls. Ambassador Tae-young, she began, her voice formal and cold. You have had 48 hours to consider the council's terms. What is humanity's response? Tae-young looked up at her, then slowly turned to survey the entire chamber. He saw Councillor Thrax leaning forward eagerly, expecting humanity's submission. He saw other species watching with expressions that ranged from sympathy to contempt to simple curiosity. High Arbiter. Councillors. Representatives of the Galactic Council, Tae-young began, his voice clear and steady. I have reviewed your terms. I have consulted with my government. I have considered every implication of accepting your demands. He paused, letting the tension build. And I have one question for you. Have you studied human history? Velmara's crystalline form flickered. Your history is well documented, human. It is precisely why we have concerns. Then you know that humanity has fought itself for 10,000 years, Tae-young continued. We have had wars that killed hundreds of millions. We created weapons that could destroy our entire world a dozen times over. We poisoned our oceans and burned our forests. By every measure, we should have destroyed ourselves. Yes, Thrax interjected. This is exactly why you are dangerous. No, Tae-young said firmly. It is exactly why we are still here. We learned. We adapted. We chose to stop. We unified our entire species under one government. Not through conquest, but through recognition that together we could survive what would destroy us separately. How many species in this chamber can say the same? He pulled up a holographic display, showing historical records he had spent the night compiling with Beoram's help. The Luminal Collective exterminated 3 rival subspecies during your ascension to space travel. The Scaleburn Empire conquered and enslaved 17 pre-spaceflight civilizations. The Elder Clouds absorbed 42 different species into their collective consciousness, erasing their individual identities forever. Angry murmurs rippled through the chamber. Velmara's form brightened with agitation. Those events occurred millions of years ago under different circumstances, she protested. And yet you judge humanity for events that happened 20 years ago? Tae-young replied. You call us violent, but we stopped our violence. We made peace with ourselves. That is more than most species here can claim. He changed the display to show human colonies. You condemn our expansion rate. 47 systems in 15 years. But every single one of those systems was empty. Lifeless rocks or gas giants with no indigenous populations. We have never displaced another species. We have never claimed inhabited worlds. Can the same be said for the founding members of this council? The chamber grew quieter. Tae-young could see he had struck a nerve. The old civilizations did not like being reminded of their own violent pasts. You specifically mentioned the Proxima incident, Tae-young continued, his voice hardening. The Vreka attacked a civilian colony. 47,000 humans died. Families, children, people who had never held a weapon in their lives. And yes, we responded with force. We invaded their worlds. He pulled up footage of the aftermath. Human Marines helping Vreka civilians. Field hospitals treating wounded on both sides. Human engineers rebuilding damaged infrastructure. But here is what your report conveniently left out. We offered surrender terms after the first battle. The Vreka refused. We offered again after the second battle. They refused. Only after the third refusal did we occupy their territory, and even then we did not slaughter their civilians. We established order, held war criminals accountable, and left. Those worlds are self-governing now. Where is the barbarism? In that, where is the genocide? Thrax stood, his scales flushing with anger. You dare to justify invasion? I dare to defend my species, Tae-young shot back. When someone attacks our people, we respond. That is not aggression. That is survival. And we respond with exactly the amount of force necessary to prevent it from happening again. No more, no less. He turned back to address the entire council, but I understand what this is really about. You're not afraid we're too violent, you're afraid we're too successful. In 15 years, we have achieved what takes most species 1,000. We do not do this because we are better than you. We do it because we have to be. Earth taught us efficiency through suffering. We learned to adapt or die. And now that we have reached the stars, you see a species that does not respect the old hierarchies, does not move at your comfortable pace, and it terrifies you. Velmara's voice echoed with authority. You are arrogant, human. One young species against 800 ancient civilizations. You cannot possibly believe you can defy us. That is exactly what I believe, Tae-young replied. His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. So here is humanity's response to your containment protocols. We reject them, completely, unconditionally, every single term. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouting in hundreds of languages. Some in outrage, some in shock, a few in what sounded like approval. Velmara raised her appendages for silence. If you refuse, we will enforce these protocols through military action. Then let me show you what you will be facing. Tae-young activated a new display. Live footage appeared, transmitted from the edge of council space. 200 human warships in perfect formation. Every weapon system active and targeting sensors locked onto council positions. The chamber went silent. You thought our fleet numbered 3,000 ships, Tae-young said calmly. You were wrong. We built these vessels in secret over the past 3 years. New junk drive technology, new weapons, new capabilities you cannot match. He changed the display again, showing star maps with human colonies marked in blue. 15 new systems appeared, all beyond the Council's surveyed space. You thought you knew the extent of human expansion. You were wrong. We have been colonizing systems you did not even know existed. We have resources you have not accounted for. We have strength you underestimated. The final display showed Earth itself, and the transmission that was being broadcast across human space. Millions of people standing together, united. The message was clear even without words. You wanted to cage us, Tae-young said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Instead, you have reminded us why we never stay caged. You have reminded every human across every colony why we fight, not for conquest, not for glory, but because we will never surrender our freedom to anyone. He looked directly at Velmara. You have 3 options, High Arbiter. 1. Treat us as equals and partners in the true spirit of this council. 2. Leave us alone and we will leave you alone. 3. Try to enforce your will and discover why every enemy that has ever underestimated humanity has regretted it. You cannot threaten the entire Galactic Council, Thrax hissed. I am not threatening, Tae-young replied. I am informing. There is a difference. You have 48 hours to decide, just as you gave us. Choose wisely. Because if you choose war, it will be a war unlike anything this galaxy has seen. And when it ends, the old order you are so desperate to preserve will be broken forever. He turned and walked toward the exit. You are making a terrible mistake, Velmara called after him. Tae-young paused at the doorway and looked back one final time. Perhaps, but it will be our mistake to make. That is what freedom means. He left the chamber. Behind him, 800 species erupted into the loudest argument in Council history. Some demanded immediate military action, others urged caution. A few species, the younger ones who had voted against containment, looked at each other with something that might have been hope. In the diplomatic suite, Hyjin was watching the live feed with tears in her eyes. That was beautiful, she said. Aram was already working, monitoring reactions from across the galaxy. Ambassador were getting messages of support from 47 different species, all of them asking for private talks. Tae-young nodded. The gamble had begun. Now they would see if humanity's defiance would inspire change or ignite war. Contact Earth, he ordered. Tell them to prepare for anything. Outside the viewport, the stars shone indifferently. But somewhere in the galaxy, the balance of power had just shifted. The first 24 hours after Tae-young's speech were chaos. The Galactic Council split into 3 factions almost immediately. The Hawks, led by Councillor Thrax and supported by the older military civilizations, demanded immediate action against humanity. They called for a blockade of human space, sanctions, even preemptive military strikes. The Doves, a smaller group of peaceful species, urged negotiation. They had watched Tae-young's speech and recognized truth in his words. Humanity had not actually attacked anyone. They had simply refused to accept restrictions no other species had to endure. The largest group were the Pragmatists, led by Arbiter Krell, a fungoid intelligence whose species had survived for 8 million years by knowing when to adapt. Krell recognized something the Hawks did not. War with humanity would be costly, perhaps catastrophically so. Tae-young watched all of this unfold from the diplomatic suite. Bioram monitored communications channels, tracking every message and conversation across the Council network. Hyjin coordinated with Admiral J1, making sure the human fleet stayed in position. Weapons ready but not actively targeting anyone. On the second day, something unexpected happened. A delegation of younger species requested a private meeting with Tae-young. They represented 43 different civilizations, all of whom had joined the Council in the last 2,000 years. All of whom faced restrictions similar to what the Council had tried to impose on humanity. They met in a neutral conference room, away from the main Council chambers. The delegates came in all shapes and sizes. Some were carbon-based like humans, others were energy beings or stranger things. But they all shared one thing. Hope, a delegate named Shora, spoke first. Her species resembled bipedal cats with golden fur and wise eyes. Ambassador Tae-young, she began, what you said in the Council chamber yesterday, about the old powers maintaining control, about younger species being held back. You spoke truth that many of us have felt but never dared to voice. We are not as powerful as you, another delegate added, a being of living crystal different from Vilmara's species. Our militaries are smaller. Our economies weaker. We cannot defy the Council the way humanity has. But we can support you, Shora continued. Quietly, carefully, we can provide resources and information. We can vote against any military action. We can be your allies in this. Tae-young considered this carefully. Alliance with these species could shift the political balance. It would also paint an even bigger target on humanity's back. What do you want in return? He asked. The same thing you want, Shora replied. Freedom. True equality within the Council. Not this system where the old civilizations make all the decisions and younger species must simply obey. You want to change the Council itself. Tae-young realized, yes, and we believe you can help us do it. Before Tae-young could respond, Bioram rushed in. Ambassador President Kyung-soo is about to make an address. He wanted you to see it first. The holographic display activated, showing the president standing in the assembly hall on Earth. Behind him, representatives from every human colony stood together. "People of the galaxy," Kyung-Soo began, his voice calm but firm. "I am President Kyung-Soo of the United Earth Government. 3 days ago, the Galactic Council demanded that humanity accept restrictions that would cripple our growth and limit our freedom. They gave us 48 hours to comply or face military action." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "Humanity's answer is no. We seek no war. We desire no conflict. But we will never accept chains, no matter who offers them. We extend our hand in friendship to all species that wish to deal with us as equals. To those who do not, we ask only that you stay out of our way. We have survived ice ages and plagues. We have survived world wars and near extinction. We will survive this too." The broadcast showed images of human colonies, human ships, human families going about their lives with quiet determination. "We are not your enemy," Kyung-Soo continued. "But we are not your servants either. The stars belong to everyone who has the courage to reach for them. That includes humanity." The broadcast ended. Tae-young looked at the gathered delegates and saw their expressions. Some looked inspired. Others looked worried. All of them looked determined. "That is our answer," Tae-young said to them. "We will not bow. And if the Council chooses to attack us, we will defend ourselves. Anyone who stands with us should understand the risks." Shora stood. "We understand. And we stand with you anyway." The other delegates murmured their agreement. The next day, the council reconvened. The tension in the chamber was thick enough to cut. Velmara floated at her position, her crystalline form dimmer than usual, as if she were tired. "This council has debated for 2 days," she announced. "We have heard arguments from all sides. The time has come to vote on a course of action." Thrax stood immediately. "I propose we authorize military action to enforce the containment protocols. Humanity has defied this council. They have made threats. They must be brought to heel." "I propose we withdraw the containment protocols," Arbiter Krell countered, "and instead negotiate new terms that humanity can accept." The chamber erupted in debate. For hours, delegates argued. Some demanded war. Others urged peace. The younger species voted in a bloc, all opposing military action. Finally, after 8 hours of heated discussion, Velmara called for a vote. The results appeared in holographic displays across the chamber. Military action, 312 votes in. Favor, withdrawal of protocols, 535. Votes in favor, the containment protocols were defeated. Tae-young allowed himself a small smile. They had won, not through force, but through defiance backed by strength. By showing the council that humanity would not be easily caged. They had forced a different path, but Velmara was not finished. "The containment protocols are withdrawn," she announced, her voice heavy with something that might have been regret or resignation. "However, this council cannot ignore the disruption that humanity's rapid expansion has caused. Therefore, I propose the formation of a new charter. The Velthera Accords?" She displayed the terms. They were far more reasonable than the original demands. Humanity would have full voting rights in the council. All species would be subject to the same expansion guidelines. Disputes would be handled through arbitration rather than unilateral action. Most importantly, the accords established clear rules that applied equally to everyone, old species and young alike. "I call for a vote on the Velthera Accords," Velmara said. This time the vote was overwhelming. 647 species voted in favor. The old order had cracked. Not destroyed, but changed. Made fairer. After the session, Velmara approached Tae-young privately. Her crystalline form pulsed with complex emotions he could not fully read. "You have changed this council forever, human," she said. "I hope you understand the weight of that responsibility." "I understand that things needed to change," Tae-young replied. "Your system worked when the galaxy was stable and unchanging. But the galaxy is not unchanging. New species will always emerge. Progress will always happen. You can either adapt to that or be left behind.
Perhaps, Vilmara said.
Or perhaps you have unleashed forces you cannot control. Time will tell. She floated away, leaving Taeyong alone with his thoughts 5 years later. Taeyong stood on a balcony overlooking Seoul. He had retired from diplomatic service, choosing instead to teach at the new Academy of Galactic Relations. His students came from dozens of species, all eager to learn how to navigate the complex politics of the new council. Haijin had become humanity's representative to the council's military committee. Her reputation had only grown, and now several species sent their officers to train with human forces, learning the tactics and strategies that had made humanity so formidable. Bo-Rem was now a full ambassador, stationed on Shora's homeworld, helping coordinate the coalition of younger species that had formed after the Welfare Accords were signed. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had colonized 89 systems now, their expansion continuing at the same rapid pace but now with full council approval. The Accords had been ratified by over 600 species, creating new rules and new opportunities for cooperation. Not everyone was happy. Thrax and his faction still resented humanity's defiance. Some species still viewed humans as dangerous and unpredictable, but more and more humanity was seen as a symbol. Proof that you could challenge unjust systems and survive. Taeyong's communication device chimed. It was a message from one of his former students, a young insectoid from a species that had just achieved space travel. The message was simple. Professor, our planet was just offered council membership, but they want to impose probationary restrictions on us. What should we do? Taeyong smiled and began typing his response. Stand for what you believe is right. Be willing to back up your words with action. And remember, the only chains that can truly bind you are the ones you accept. He sent the message and looked up at the sky. Stars were visible even through Seoul's lights, and somewhere among them, humanity's ships traveled freely. Not as subjects of a galactic empire, but as equals in a community they had helped reshape. The old arbiter's words came back to him. Had he unleashed forces he could not control? Perhaps. But Taeyong had learned long ago that progress was always messy. Change was always difficult. The important thing was that humanity had not backed down.